Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. It's been a while since I've been online, and there's a couple of reasons for that. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue working on this channel, and here I am, though. Something always pulls me back, and so I guess we'll see what happens this time around. There's a couple of reasons I've not been around, and one is that I've been working on a book about the body. The book is called The Living Temple Codex, and it's a book about the language, the frequencies, the ailments of the body, and how we can look at those through a different lens in terms of understanding the body as a spiritual technology and a divine technology, not some benign meat sack that we are just waiting to escape, but a temple of the divine that we are consecrating so that the divine might live and abide within us. Something that I'm really passionate about, and it really is a crossover between this kind of work, same kind of language, same intention, is about reconsecrating the body. Because I feel that if we have more of an understanding of our own body, our own temple, that we can start to reconsecrate and rebalance the collective body and the earth, which is just a reflection of that in macro. So I will put a link for that book in the description of this video. You're welcome to go there and download it. And if that book serves you, if you get anything from it, then there's also an opportunity to donate. However, you don't have to, that's entirely up to you, but it would be appreciated if you did. So another reason is that I've been going through some things in my own life. The past couple of months has really brought up a lot in my awareness around certain things that I'm involved in that perhaps aren't right energetically, and I've had to let a couple of things go. That includes a couple of relationships, business-wise and otherwise. And you know, it's been an interesting time. A lot of things have been falling away in my own journey, and so there has been this real quietude. My beautiful dog has injured his paw, so we've been kind of still for a few weeks, which has also helped me get the book done, but also helped me have time to think about what I'm doing and where I'm going moving forward. But I do still feel like I have things to share and things to say, and maybe in a new tone, because a part of it has been also understanding how sometimes I filter myself, or sometimes I speak in a way which is conscious of other people's perspectives, and I want people to receive my words in a certain way. I'm a perfectionist at heart. You know, I have this perfectionist template which I don't make any excuses for. That's just part of who I am. It serves and it doesn't serve, because in my inner world sometimes I'm a bit over scrutinizing of my own words and my own framing, but in other ways it makes sure that I get things done in a particular way which I like, when I like it done in a certain way. So here I am again anyway, and I want to keep sharing, and I know there are people that do get help from these videos, and so really this is for you. And today I'm going to talk about something which I may have spoken about before, but I'm going to talk about it in a bit of a different register, a bit more directly. And as I get into it, I want to say that as much as I might speak a bit directly and sometimes with a bit of righteousness, it's not because I think that I'm better than anybody or more spiritually superior. I speak from experience and the wisdom that's come from my own journey, and I speak directly because that's just my nature. I can be quite a righteous person, and sometimes I have been self-righteous as well, but I have this fire, I have this passion. I'm a fiery sage, and I like, you know, I've been on the journey of rebellion and revolt. I started my spiritual journey, my awakening or awareness journey, whatever you want to call it, with the sense of revolt and rebellion against the systems that I felt were not there to serve us. And I've been through that, and I've come out the other side, and that's what I want to share now, is speaking about the dance that we go on, the journey that we go on in terms of the adversary, Satan, the devil, and these opponents that we feel that we have out there. Because at the end of that, there is one final boss, there is one ultimate adversary that has got nothing to do with governments or people in the Middle East or elites or reptilians or any of these narratives that we may be invested in. There is one final adversary that actually is much more difficult to overcome than all those, because all those in the end are just reflections of a deeper issue anyway, you know. And you may hear a lot of people talking about everything's a reflection, which can seem like a passive spiritual sentiment. There is truth in it, but it's nuanced, because it's not to say that everything is a direct correlation, but that in everything we see and experience, react to and judge, there is something within us that potentially can be addressed and seen in a new way, so that we can evolve in our own personal lives and then affect the collective and see change in the collective manifest. And that is taking place, that is happening, maybe not at the pace that many of us are happy about. However, it is happening anyway, because this is ultimately God's drama, and God is in control, and the stars, the cosmos, everything else is all playing into that. And that's an important point to start with, because we are entering and starting to evolve into the age of Aquarius, and every star sign has its ruler, its planetary ruler. And the interesting thing about Aquarius is that it used to be seen as Saturn. And Saturn, what does that represent? It represents rules, structure, discipline, order. And now, since the discovery of Uranus, people now attribute the planet Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius. And what does that represent? Freedom, liberation, expansion, technology advancing, rebirth, all these things that seem to be opposite to Saturn. And I think that's one of the biggest tensions that we're experiencing now, is because people are really, really wanting freedom and liberation. And it's completely understandable. It's completely understandable. We've been living in this rigid system for quite a long time. What's that a result of? It's the Saturn energy imbalanced, because everything is on a pendulum. And if you go too far to the extreme of one end, you're going to find that those things that often serve can start to limit. And so we're in this age of, we've been in this working with Saturn energy, which has been very much about rules, rigidity, and structure. And now we're wanting to swing aggressively into the other, which is freedom, liberation, expansion. And there is just as much potential for problems if we swing too far in that direction. And I think that's what we're starting to see, because a lot of these freedom movements, a lot of these conspiracy movements and people that are trying to liberate themselves from the system, they are very much just focused in that direction without understanding the tension, the divine tension between the two. Because freedom without structure and order is chaos. I've probably said that before, but imagine a river without banks. It just becomes a flood. It's just water everywhere. But a river within the banks has a clear direction, it has a destiny, it has a pattern to flow to. And on the other side, the riverbank or the riverbed without the river is just a dry ditch. So the two complement one another. Rules and structure don't have to mean imposition or trappedness or restrictedness. That's what it looks like in its extreme. But in balance, it can be freedom with rules. Because why rules? Because nature has rules. Nature has laws. Nature has principles that run it to keep it in balance. So on the scale of polarity, everything has its opposite. And it isn't the journey isn't about trying to get to one over the other. It isn't about high frequency and high vibes over low vibes and low frequency. That's a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation of what that really means. And it's come quite strongly through the spiritual world, is positive vibes only, how to raise your frequency, how to get higher vibes, these kind of things. I understand why people want to do that, but when we take out our preferences and look at it energetically without the good and bad labels, we understand that masculine, feminine, positive, negative, receptive, and give are just a polarity, and they need to be balanced. For example, positive is masculine. So if there were only men on the planet, the species would die out. Negative is feminine. If there are only feminine on the planet, the species would die out. Masculine, positive is giving. If we only gave and never received, then we would burn out. Just as if we were only chasing high vibes and high frequency all the time, we will burn out, because everything is a wave. And if you are at the peak, you have to come back down. Not to be lost, not to be harmed, not to be depressed, but to regenerate. That's rest. Action, masculine, positive. Rest is the feminine, receptivity, where you get the energy to then move again. If you wanted to jump up from the ground, you first have to put energy into the ground. You have to bend your knees to go up. So we cannot have one without the other. There's been this misunderstanding of labeling positive and negative as good and bad, because too much negativity can be bad for you and too much positivity can be bad for you. But a balance of both is good for you. So I just wanted to get that out of the way first to kind of understand energetically what the necessity is. If we want freedom, we have to be looking at how we can use the laws of nature to provide that. Because when we follow the laws, when we understand how creation works, then we work with it rather than against it. And we do start to meet heaven on earth. And that's the trajectory that we're on. The body is a bridge between the masculine, the father current, and the feminine, the mother current, heaven and earth. And this body has to be able to find a way to embody those two principles of masculine and feminine so that it can live in harmony and in congruence here. So this is a big dynamic. We see that played out in terms of the masculine, feminine, or male-female dynamics on the planet. The battle of the sexes, race, culture, it's all the same. It's just a dance of extremes. But we get lost thinking we've got to get one over the other, whereas actually we need to find a way to exchange between the two according to what's required for the whole in the moment, because we're all one. And so we have to be considering how our actions are benefiting each other and ourselves. If I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a fire sign. So that means that I can be quite fiery sometimes. I have a lot of righteousness. And that can become self-righteousness if I don't temper it with a bit of water, which gives me mercy, gives me compassion, gives me flow, allows me to let go and release. So water and fire complement each other. And so this is true on the micro and the macro level. And where we are at right now in terms of the calamity on this planet, we are seeing an attachment often to one side or the other. And so what I was going to talk about was the adversary. Because the adversary that many people are focused on right now, whether it's Satan or the elites or some group in the Middle East or, some lizard population, whatever it is, we always focus on wanting to resolve that because we feel that if we just take them down, if we just sort that out, that everything will be fine. But if we're honest with ourselves and we look back in history, we can see that that's just not the way it works, because there is a fundamental component to this that we don't look at, the final adversary, which actually takes much more grit, courage and determination to overcome than these other adversaries that we find in the world out there. Because at the end of the day, they are just a reflection. And I don't mean to say that that's an immediate mirror of everything that's going on with you. That's a sentiment that is often used as a bypass in the spiritual community, that everything's a reflection. It is true, but it doesn't mean that it's not like for like. So what it means is that if I find something disgusting and abhorrent and horrific on the global stage, then I have to be aware that there's certain energies that I may carry within me that have contributed to that. Because what starts in the subtle eventually gets grosser and grosser until it manifests in something in form, and then we have to deal with the image. But what happens is the image comes and we just blame that and say they are the bad ones, we've got to take them down. The truth is we've all projected judgment, resentment, disdain to others and to ourselves. We've all carried those frequencies at some point, which have left us either through our words, through our actions, through our thoughts, and then entered into the collective field, become more dense, magnetized to other peoples who are doing the same thing, and then eventually that becomes something in the physical, whether that's a human being that does something evil, or whether it's a group, or whether it's an event, and then we judge that without going, how did I contribute? We all contribute because we're all one. And as I've said before, if evil exists in one person, then we all have the potential to express that. Not necessarily in the same way, and not necessarily by the same circumstances, but we all have a recipe card. And once we've fulfilled that recipe list, something might make us snap and do something. We've all got one, because it's out there. Until every single person has cleansed and purged that from themselves, the collective has the potential to express. So what is the final adversary that we face? It's ourselves. It's our mind that wants to be a victim and say, they are doing this to me. Sometimes that's true. It's not to say there aren't evil people out there, and they should be dealt with. But if we just stop there, then we miss the bigger healing, because we have to deal with the weed, and we also have to take it up at the roots. You know full well if you go out into the garden and just take the heads off the weeds, they grow back. It's no different with anything in nature, because the principles that govern reality work in every cell, in every atom, in every expression, in nature, in our human nature, in the heavens and on earth, as above, so below. There's correspondence in all of it. Again, it's not a direct correlation of you are to blame. It's to say that if you have ever judged, said something unkind, done something deceitful, you have added to the collective soup of that, which eventually creates a collective image that we then have to deal with. So when we look to the Middle East, regardless of who we think is to blame for what's going on over there, the fact is the collective, through its attention economy, feeds into what's going on over there. And while ever we just see an enemy, an adversary in that, and want to deal with them and judge them and hate them, we miss the opportunity to make sure it never happens again whilst we deal with it. If you people will say to me, well, I'm justified in my hatred because they are doing disgusting things. Yeah, understand that, completely agree. But the truth about that was also that if you hate someone, even if you're justified, you're a hateful person. And if you might say I'm justified in my hate, great. It doesn't change the fact that you are still hateful, full of hate, and that's poisoning you. That's poisoning your heart. So many people think that they're wise to Satan's game, the devil's game, the elites, the cabal, whatever you want to call it. But the truth is, while ever you are holding those feelings and those words and that language inside of you that hates and judges, you are yourself poisoned by that. And so what that means is we take them out, we take their heads off, we take them down, we have a revolution, just like we did last time Pluto was in Aquarius. And then what happens? Because we don't resolve it in our own hearts, it just crops up again later on. And then we start saying, oh, it's reptilians, it's this, it's that, it's this, these people from the Middle East. I understand where that comes from, but when you understand the psyche and the collective experience that we share here, you can see the pattern, the symbol. It's no wonder we're always obsessed with reptiles, because there is this reptilian part of our brain that is obsessed with fear and survival. And so we project that out, and then we say, oh, they're coming to get us. Actually, it's our own consciousness that is in separation and forgetfulness of its unity with the divine that has ultimately created all this. So you feel justified in your hatred? Great. The truth behind it all is, lawfully, you still are full of hate, so you're letting that poison you. And let's not pretend that some of these themes that we judge out there in the collective, whether it's ritual abuse and all this stuff, let's not pretend that that isn't going on in the lives and homes of a lot of the population. Most of us know someone who's been sexually abused, harmed by their parents, let's say, come up in an environment where there's been some trauma. And we're going to judge that all on one group in the Middle East, one set of billionaires or one set of reptilians, or are we going to acknowledge that actually, through our fear and forgetfulness of our relationship to the divine, there has been this current that's been growing and growing over millennia, which has led to a lot of this calamity. And it's not about judging anybody. It's about remembering that we do create this reality, and that's how powerful we are. But if we really want to change it for the better, long term, we can't just project all that energy out there and say, I want to take them down, and then everything will be fine. Because we know deep down that's not true. We are holding the hate, and it doesn't just dissolve when they get dissolved. We still have it inside of us, and we have to face that, So while ever we are neutralizing the threat out there in whatever way is necessary, we have to make sure that we are not being poisoned by that, because God sees the heart at the end of the day and is looking for, is it full of greed? Is it full of envy? Is it full of resentment, anger, hatred towards your brothers and sisters out there? And if it is, maybe you've been manufactured, maybe you've been influenced to feel that way. Many of us have. But you can connect to the voice of your conscience that knows that's all nonsense, and get into the truth of oneness, not some soppy spiritual truth, but the truth that says if there's hate out there, then I have hate that I also have to deal with. And it might not be on the same level, but there are micro, subtle versions of it in me. Every time I judge someone because of their appearance, every time I judge someone because of their race or their gender or whatever it is, I am adding to that. And it's just as simple as that. Again, no blame, no judgment. This is about understanding how the law works, how energy works, because we are in a system of energy, and energy doesn't have a preference. It doesn't have a good or a bad. It's just an exchange of positive and negative. And when the negative is there's too much of that, then it creates chaos. And when the positive is too much, it creates burnout. You know, a lot of these freedom movements that are out there now are just carbon copies of the systems that they claim to oppose. They're being set up with special clubs. If you've got enough money in your crypto wallet, you can come and join our elite club. And there's all this private hidden knowledge that we've got that you can come and access in these clubs. Playing the markets to benefit from other people's losses. Hierarchical systems. My blood is better than your blood because you've had some jab or whatever it is. Eugenics. You know, this is the problem. When we reject something, we end up becoming it. So this isn't to say that we allow these things to unfold unchecked. It's that we have to make sure that we don't lose our center as we manage those things, that we don't become bitter, that we don't become resentful, that we understand that there is a law of cause and effect in place here. We understand how it's come to be through everybody's subtle additions into the energetic field, and then how can I withdraw that contribution and offer more peace and harmony, because we live in a great system of sound, and all sound wants to do is harmonize. When you listen to a piece of music, it sounds better when it's in harmony than if it's all. So how do I harmonize with this? The human condition has been taught to reject discomfort, to put up a wall against it, to have boundaries, separate ourselves. You can't separate yourself from creation. So what do? I have to find a way to accept it. Not condone it, but accept it as it is, because when I accept it, the field settles, the sound harmonizes, and then I'm in a place where I can choose coherently what is the right action next. How do I move forward with this to make sure that I don't contribute to it happening another 250 years down the line? Because that's all that we've been seeing is history repeating itself. And maybe history will continue to repeat itself. I've probably said this before, but the individual doesn't have to get involved in that. So the difficult question is, if there's evil out there, if there's hatred out there, if there's judgment, resentment, envy, greed, manipulation out there, where have I played that game in my own way? Even if it's micro, even if it's subtle, where have I played that game in my own way? And then how can I understand myself? How can I understand why that's come to be? I've manipulated people. I've upset people intentionally. And I've had to make amends and forgive myself and ask for forgiveness for those things. But I forgive myself because I understand that it came from somewhere. It came from a forgetfulness. It came from a reaction to something that happened to me. So I was harmed and I harmed someone else. But eventually I got given the sight to be able to see the law. I'm very grateful for that. And it wasn't easy. You know, I've been personally on a journey over many years to resolve that. And again, that perfectionist in me always wanted to keep going. But there comes a time when we have to recognize that the human spirit, the human, is still a child in the greater dance of creation. And as a child, our divine godparents understand that we do forget sometimes. We do get our emotions do lead sometimes. It's not about never having that. It's about coming back, returning to center and saying, I see what happened there. And I'm not going to hold on to any judgment and resentment to myself or anybody else. And I'm going to let it go. Deal with what I've got to deal with, then release it. We're always given the grace to do that. God never holds anything against us. There's no record of our wrongs being kept. We might do that. But the divine doesn't. The divine says, I'm here. I'm always going to be right here for you. I'm just waiting for you to see. Just like you would with your child. and your child does something silly, you say, well, you didn't know. Now you know. But now you know. And so this is what it is with us too. What you didn't know, you didn't know. But once you know, it gets a bit more difficult to avoid because the conscience gets louder. The conscience starts saying, you know, that's not the right choice. And the conscience is the voice of God, and we all have it. Whether some of us really hear it clearly and others of us are avoiding it, that's up for debate. But we all have it. We all know we're one, and we all know that what I do to one, I do to the whole. So while I'm out there spitting fire, whoever it's to, I'm just creating more of that by law. So what's the resolution? Deal with the issue, but don't forget to deal with it in your own life. Don't pretend that you don't play your own part in it. It's much easier to be a victim than it is to be accountable, that's for sure. And I don't claim this to be an easy journey. That's why I offer support and mentorship to people that are going through this. But the truth is, as you get through it, the light starts to come on, the kingdom starts to appear, and you realise that there's nothing to escape. There's no matrix trapping me except the one that I'm creating. Outside of that, there is freedom. And this can be paradise, and it will be paradise. The reason it's chaotic is because it's being forced back into that. And everything that's not congruent with that is falling away. How long that's going to take? It's up to us, but the fact is it's going to happen anyway. So let's just get on with it.